Our goal as a charity is not to exist. The sooner, the better. That's why we're working at Speed to help the world to learn dyslexia. Because the sooner our schools and our workplaces are trained to spot and support dyslexia, the better our world will be made by those who think differently. The world needs dyslexic thinking, not in 5 years, not in 10 years, but right now. Our first 5 years redefine dyslexia and showcase the game-changing power of dyslexic thinking. Our next 5 years are about action, bold and swift. We need to train everyone to empower dyslexic thinking globally. Every person, every school, every workplace. And we're doing it city by city, continent by continent. But we need your help. Help us to share our free solutions for both education and the workplace, and help us to empower dyslexic thinking across the world. Because dyslexics are game changers. We see the world not as it is, but as it could be. And the truth is, we don't have to accept a world where outdated education systems fail to spot the minds of the future, or work in organizations that don't support the kind of thinking that invented the light bulb or the iPhone. Because we do have a role in changing the future. All of this we can do, all of this we will do, the sooner the better, so that we no longer exist. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the World Dyslexia Assembly. Also, our audience out there on the live stream, welcome to you. Good afternoon, Your Royal Highnesses, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Robin Kerno. I'm Made by Dyslexia as well. We're about to have some remarkable conversations with extraordinary people in this utterly amazing space. We're so lucky to have you here and to be here in person. Also, I do want to give a special thank you to so many people who've actually traveled here to be in New York at the Lincoln Center from around the world. And we know a lot of you, wherever you are watching us, are made by dyslexia. So we hope that you'll be inspired by the conversations tonight. And we also hope then that you will take the change back into your schools, into your classrooms, into your homes, into your workplaces. Before we really get started, and we've got an amazing program for you tonight, I do want to have a few housekeeping rules. There will be an interval, 20 minutes. You'll be able to go outside and get a drink, but you aren't allowed to bring the drink back here into the auditorium. Also, you'll see on your programs and also on some of the, around the venue, there's a QR code. That allows you to donate to Made by Dyslexia. Of course, that's pretty important because every dollar allows us to move faster and make change. Now, I want to introduce you to the woman who has made all of this happen. She is the reason we're all here at the Lincoln Center in New York. She is the heart and the brains behind Made by Dyslexia, the founder and CEO of Made by Dyslexia, Kate Griggs. Please welcome her.
thank you. Everybody welcome. I know there are so many other hearts and brains of the dyslexia movement in the audience, so thank you everybody for coming far and wide to be with us tonight, and everybody watching on the live stream. We're at a pivotal moment for dyslexia. Last year, we saw LinkedIn add dyslexic thinking as a skill. It also entered the dictionary as a noun. We know that dyslexic thinking is a valuable skill that is needed in every workplace around the world. We have the people skills, the creativity, the problem-solving skills that every single workplace is looking for. So it's no longer acceptable that support for dyslexia should be largely available to those who can pay. We have to level the playing field. We have to make sure that every single dyslexic child, from wherever they are, get the support that they need. And we need to make sure that every single workplace is able to spot and support dyslexic thinking. Last year was also a very big year because the largest school district and the largest city in the world, New York City, trained every single teacher with our free training. We also launched our campaign and our mission, Learn Dyslexia, which aims to get every single teacher in the world trained, so we no longer need to exist. New York City is run by the most incredible team, and you're going to hear a lot from them later on this evening. But before I say anything else, we'd just like to share a film with you that'll help you understand dyslexic thinking a little bit more.
This is Emily. Like 1 in 5 children, she will be born dyslexic. The left parieto-temporal area of her brain will be affected, which means her neural pathways will be different from those born without dyslexia. Emily will see patterns most of us can't. She'll grasp complex problems with ease and will think laterally, differently, creatively. The exact skills workplaces now need. Because of her dyslexia, Emily could change the world with an invention or inspire a generation with her thinking, like Steve Jobs, Agatha Christie, Muhammad Ali, or Richard Branson. These people made the world in which we live, and they were made by dyslexia.
As a charity, we are made by dyslexia, and you're going to hear lots of lessons in dyslexic thinking this evening. Amazing conversations with some of the world's most inspiring dyslexics. We want to find out what dyslexic thinking is and how each of us can use it to change the world. Our first chat this evening is with New York's very own Mayor Eric Adams. Mayor Adams came to power with a promise to get stuff done. He promised to train all teachers to spot and empower dyslexic thinking in every classroom in New York using our training. 3 months later, it was done. Here to tell us how his dyslexic thinking helps him to succeed in what he does is Mayor Eric Adams.
As you know, if you're dyslexic, sometimes things never work out the way they're supposed to work out. And you're always supposed to come up with a plan. I know that growing up with dyslexia, one has to be a street fighter and get between A and B a different route to everyone else. Now, of course, the mayor is taking a little different route to get here. And so I'm going to welcome our next panel. As soon as the mayor arrives, I am going to introduce him to you. But we're going to hand over to your next panel, Kate, and we will wing it as only dyslexics can in the best way possible. Enjoy.
done and the work that they're going to do to support all dyslexic learners. So I want to begin by introducing our panelists. Of course, I have the amazing Kate Griggs, who will be moderating with us today. Yes. We also have Mr. David Banks, Chancellor of New York City Schools.
Thank you.
Quintana, Deputy Chancellor. Thank you so much. Look at that. We have the Executive Director of Literacy and Academic Intervention Services, Mr. Jason Borges. And we have New York City School Principal at PS 107, Miss Joanna Cohen. So to get us going and have this conversation get started, Kate, why don't I turn it over to you?
Thank you, Josh. So just to recap everything that we all know in the dyslexia world and charities and dyslexia experts know, in order to create a classroom and a school that supports dyslexia and dyslexic children, we need to have several things. The first thing is that every teacher needs to be trained to understand and spot dyslexia, because it is mainstream. It's 1 in 5 children, and those kids mainly can flourish in a mainstream school if they're given the support they need. Next, we need to use a structured literacy approach to teach reading, because it helps dyslexic kids, but actually helps all kids. And we need some extra help for those that will still struggle even with that. And now we know we need to support dyslexic thinking. New York City is doing all of those things, and I'd just like to start my first question to Chancellor David Banks, if I may. New York City was the first city to recognise that dyslexia is a really important issue to address, and which can and must be supported. Tell us why dyslexia has become such an important issue for you.
Well, first of all, Kate, thank you so much for inviting me and members of our team to be here and to share with you a little bit today. This issue was made a priority first and foremost by our mayor, who you will hear from momentarily. He is here now, and he is dyslexic, and he will tell you his own story about what he has had to deal with throughout his life and in his leadership. But it is because of his history that he made this a priority for our administration. But when I think about my own story of being a teacher in the public schools, I was a 4th grade teacher. But prior to that, I was a product of the New York City public school system. And it was a system that taught me to read and to read well. But when I became a teacher, one of the things that I noticed was teaching 4th grade, there were so many students that would come to my class and they were not reading on grade level. And so what do the 4th grade teachers do? We blame the 3rd grade teachers, don't we? And who do the 3rd grade teachers blame? The 2nd grade and the 2nd grade, 1st grade teachers blame the kindergarten teachers. And who do the kindergarten teachers blame? The parents. And so it's a blame game that plays itself all the way out and is deeply unfortunate. 49% of the students in our school system today are reading on grade level. Think about that. A little less than half. The number's even worse for black and brown children. 65% of black and brown children in the New York City public schools are not reading on grade level. If our school system owes our young people anything, they owe them the ability to read and to read well. And children who are suffering from dyslexia, their brains just move differently. And they need additional supports in order for them to demonstrate all their brilliance. And so we've been very, very committed to making a real difference in the lives of not only these young people, but you can't do it unless you're helping to transform how our teachers are teaching, how they see our students, how they assess them, and then putting in the interventions that are critically important. Now, Our Deputy Chancellor and others on our team will tell you a little bit more about the specific things that we're doing. But I just think it's really important to know that when we think about our overarching theme of bright starts and bold futures, it's very difficult for a system this large to ensure the success of all young people if we don't make sure that they have a solid literacy foundation. There's nothing more important that we can do, and it's something that we're fully committed to.
It's absolutely fantastic. Thank you. And Carolyn, tell us how you've put, firstly, our training in place, but also the other things you're putting in place.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Carolyn Quintana. I'm Deputy Chancellor, work with this fine gentleman over here, of teaching and learning in New York City Public Schools. Not only were we given this charge, but when Chancellor Banks and I came in, one of the things we had talked about was we wanted to make sure, and his big vision was to make sure that every single child could read well before they left the third grade. We know that that has an impact not just on the later on, institutes of higher education, career, but also one of the conversations we have often is the ability to read and to read well has an impact on a child's socio-emotional well-being, on their health. And we want to make sure that we are building up strong, happy individuals who are going to be able to go out into the world and be a force for change, right? It's our responsibility as a public school system, and it is our responsibility as the adults and the educators in that system to create the structures, the programs, the resources, or to bring in those that are already grounded in research and science that we know are going to have an impact in those ways. And so we have those conversations with the team. We talked to, we actually put together committees of experts, and we brought in resources from folks we met like you and the folks at Made by Dyslexia. And what was really exciting about the training with Made by Dyslexia is it was available to everyone right away. When you have a tool that's available via technology that everybody can access right away, we made sure that it was the first thing that we did. And the reason we did it, actually, so I'll tell you a little story. So just this weekend, actually, Chancellor and I both went to a children's play. If you have an opportunity to go see it, it's off Broadway, so not too expensive. Lovely children's play. You may have read the book, A Fish in a Tree. Anyone read it? Yeah. Amazing play. Really well done. But the reason that this is important is when we were watching this, which is about a young girl who has dyslexia, who doesn't realize that that's what she has. She has headaches. She has stomach aches. She doesn't want to go to school. Her brother is struggling at work, and we'll hold on to him for just a minute there. And in school, she gets teased. She doesn't finish things until a new teacher comes in and recognizes something about her. And what's really cool, and this is, I think, the connection to Made by Dyslexia, is that they also recognize some of the ingenuity and the talents that she has. She can draw really well, and she creates these sort of movies in her head, and she's just really exciting in those kinds of ways, but she cannot read. And the teacher recognizes this, and every time the girl wants to put herself down and say, it means that I'm not, he cuts her off and never lets her finish the sentence and says, you're brilliant. You're creative, you're intelligent. And I think what really struck me, and we commented about this, was when that happened, we watched parents hug their children in the audience, right? Squeezing the children in that audience. The brother, who eventually loses his job because he can't read the manual at his garage, there's a connection there. The audience all of a sudden goes, oh. And I think that part, and we talked about that too, right? That recognition that it's not just about our kids in our classrooms not being frustrated in that third grade, in the second grade, in kindergarten, but that this actually has an impact well beyond school. And if we don't address something that we have the absolute capacity to do so, then we are setting up people for future failure and frustration. And again, as a public institution, that's not okay. And so we did everything we needed to make sure folks are trained and they know. And what Made by Dyslexia's training helped us do is to start that cycle of knowledge and understanding so we can go deeper into the training that we're going to do.
That is, yes, deserves a round of applause.
And one of the things I love about that you just talked about was that social emotional piece, right? We in this audience know we can teach kids to read, but what's really hard is building back belief in yourself, right? When a kid's broken, it's a whole lot harder to help and intervene. And as part of this training, New York City has done all the Learn Dyslexia training, every single teacher. It's amazing. And so, Jason, if I can turn to you for a second, teachers have done this training. In what ways are you finding that we can identify these kids sooner to kind of intervene on the social emotional piece as well? What does that look like, and how has that empowered you more?
Thanks, Josh. And thanks, everyone, for having us here. Thank you, Kate. You know, I think the first thing about the Made by Dyslexia training that we did across the system last year was an opportunity, as the Deputy Chancellor stated, to develop knowledge and awareness and the right conceptions about dyslexia. And I think that is very, very powerful, and it's really such a great opening to the journey ahead that this administration is going to do. And so with that knowledge and awareness, if there's aspects of the social emotional aspects of dyslexia and those factors to observe. The other piece too is just looking at children's reading and thinking about things like decoding and fluency as also risk factors, particularly when we hear kids read and looking at their writing in those ways. Also, the role of instructional technology, which is constantly evolving, but I think through the training has really laid the foundation for us to look at all of these things, but also the technological aspects. And the last thing I'll say about the training is it's strengths-based. It's not a deficit-based way of viewing our children, and particularly children who present and live with dyslexia.
That's great. And I'm so appreciative of you bringing up the strengths-based piece, right? Because we could spend so much time talking about what our kids can't do or what they struggle with. We forget to talk about what they can do, right? That's really where we're going to see the biggest difference is investing in our kids, not just trying to repair our kids. So I'm thrilled to hear you say that and talk about that. And I'm going to come back to you in a minute, Jason. But before I do, I want to go to Joanna for a minute, because the rest of us are really good about talking about schools. Joanna is in a school, right? She is actually boots on the ground trying to make a difference and change the way that we think and talk about reading instruction in a school. So, Joanna, can you tell us a little bit your story and what that looked like at your school?
Sure. Thank you so much, Josh, for that question. Thank you, Kate. I think that's a question that school leaders around the world are grappling with right now. As we know more, as the science of reading and structured literacy have really just, I think from the school perspective, have just sort of burst onto the scene in the last couple of years. I'll just tell you a little bit about my school. PS 107 is an elementary school. It's located in Park Slope, which is an affluent neighborhood in Brooklyn. Our students have really every possible advantage, and yet we still see about 20% of our students, that 1 in 5 that you were referring to earlier, graduating from our school not reading on grade level. So unfortunately, I feel that this is something that we've just accepted over the years, as we're just not going to be able to reach that 20%. And when I started building my background knowledge and my understanding of the science of reading, I realized it doesn't have to be this way. And there were a few key staff members at PS 107 who also felt that way and felt that they really weren't able to speak up over the years, because we had been a balanced literacy school for many years, and that was the way it was. That was how we had all been trained. I myself had been trained that way. I attended probably one of the most highly regarded universities for teacher education in the nation, and yet when I graduated, I did not know how to meet the needs of my struggling readers, and they made up about a quarter of my first class as a teacher. So over the years, I've been in the Department of Education now for 19 years, questioned balanced literacy. I've worked in all sorts of, with all different populations. I became an English as a second language teacher and worked with, was an assistant principal at schools that had large numbers of English language learners. Balanced literacy certainly was not working for students there. So I was gathering information, reading the research, and when I convened my instructional leadership team this year, I asked them, who has heard of the term the science of reading? And nobody on my instructional leadership team had, which I think is important for everyone to hear, because it is a challenge to filter this information down to the ground, to teachers, to administrators as well. But we started building our background knowledge in the instructional leadership team. I started including more information. I sent out a weekly staff newsletter. People were reading it. They were coming to me saying, oh, this all makes sense now. Now I see why I could never really get these kids to where they needed to be. So when we were asked to become one of the structured literacy pilot schools in New York City, I accepted. I was worried. I was nervous because I'm a relatively new principal. It's my second year at the school. We have very veteran staff members. And there were people who came to me and said, this is painful because this is the way I've taught for years. This is what I believe to be right. And I've seen it work with many kids, not all kids, but many kids. And we do have kids who come to school ready. They have the background knowledge, they have the life experiences that really prime them to do well in school. So I really empathize with that teacher. Teachers pour their heart and souls into their job, and it's important that in shifting a school that we really recognize that and that we treat teachers as professionals. And so what we're doing right now is we are training about 60% of our staff. They're taking a 55-hour graduate level course called Pathways to Proficient Reading, and we've made sure to give them time to do that because there is not enough time in schools. They are going to have 6 days where they have substitutes covering their classes so they can take 36 hours of the course, and then they will finish it over the summer, and we're going to pay them for that time as well. So I think that respecting... So I think respecting and honoring teachers' time, and that this is a process and that there really is a lot of knowledge that they have to grow, is one of the most important things. Next year, we're expecting to make major changes in our kindergarten and first grade classes, and then gradually shifting up second through fifth grades. And I just want to thank the chancellor and the deputy chancellor and Jason for really being behind me, because that has given me the inspiration and also the support, the institutional support, to make this happen on the ground.
That is amazing. Amazing work. And you said something I think is so important. You're doing amazing work. You're giving these teachers amazing knowledge, and you're also giving them time, and you're giving them money. And that's what they need. If we're going to ask them to change the way that they practice, we got to give them the resources, not just the knowledge. So I think that is so important. We have about 1,000 more questions that we want to ask you, but I'm looking at the clock that is blinking at me very angrily. So we have run out of time, but I want to thank our panelists so much for joining us. I want to thank New York City for doing this. There is still so much work to be done. I don't know if the clock reset or if we have time, but Kate, I think you have one final question for the Chancellor.
I think I'd just like to ask the Chancellor, in such an amazing diversity, how proud are you that you're really embracing dyslexic thinking?
We are going to change how this entire country looks at reading. We know that the eyes of the world are on what we do here, because anything that happens in the largest school system in the country has impact on everyone. We are convinced, together with this mayor, that the way for all of our children to have a bright future, a bold future, is for them to have a bright start. Mm-hmm. And we're going to get this right. In many ways, Joanna, it's like turning the ship around in the middle of the ocean. It doesn't happen overnight, but it will not happen at all if you don't begin to make that change. We've got the right team. We've got the right teachers, the right educators all across this system. They are ready for a change. because these folks who are working in our schools are brilliant. They love these kids, and they know that we have not given our kids everything that they're supposed to get because we've not given them the right tools. We're going to change that. We're going to change the way it looks across this country.
Well, I can't think of a more inspiring and a better way to end our conversation. So, again, thank you all so much for this. Thank you for all you're doing. Up next, I believe up next, and if not right now, shortly, I have the great honor of introducing a conversation with one of my favorite people in the world who I have never met. But this individual is a champion for changing the way that we think about reading and ensuring every student in every school gets what they need to be successful. And so in just a few moments, we are going to have a conversation with Kate and Emily Hanford, which I'm so excited for us all to have. So thank you again to our panelists, and thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Emily, it's wonderful to be chatting to you. I'm sure lots of people will know about your amazing podcast, Sold a Story, and all of your incredible research into the science of reading. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and the research and what you found?
The science of reading is a term that a lot of people are using these days, and it's not a program, it's not an approach, it's not a curriculum, it's a body of research. So over the past 50 years or so, scientists, cognitive scientists, psychologists, linguists all over the world have been doing key research into how we read. How do we learn how to read? What do we need to know to become good readers? What's going wrong when people struggle to learn how to read? What I learned through my reporting is that the kind of instruction that kids with dyslexia desperately need is helpful for all kids, and a lot of teachers don't know about it. And in fact, some of the ways that they're teaching kids to read run counter to what the scientific research says, so that in fact some kids in schools here in the United States and other parts of the world are being taught the habits of struggling readers rather than being taught the things they need to know to become good, proficient, fluent readers who can comprehend text. So that is the problem. There's this big gap between what we found in research and what's happening in schools.
We know what works. Why isn't it happening? Why isn't this in every school?
I've spent years trying to figure that out. This is a question of getting research into practice, which is difficult always, all the time. Getting research into practice in any field, it takes a long time. But there's been resistance in education, as I think there is when research moves into practice in many fields, because people have been doing things different ways and are interested in the ways they're doing them, vested in the ways they're doing them. And so much of this comes as such a surprise to many teachers who weren't taught what they needed to know about how kids learn to read. And they sometimes resist this learning at first because it's so different from what they've been doing for years in classrooms. And for teachers, there's many moments of shock and grief and sadness, recognizing that they really didn't know what they needed to know, that they had lots of students who they couldn't help.
Yeah, 100%. So we know what works, and we know it is about skilling up teachers. What would your advice be, firstly, to teachers, and then secondly, to parents?
My advice is to find the other people who are concerned about this too. More and more people are understanding that this is a problem. They're concerned about it. Find your colleagues, if you're a teacher, whether they're in your school or your school system. For parents, find the other parents who are concerned. And I think one of the things that I'm most hopeful about is that there are parents of kids who are not struggling with reading who care about this issue now. So be together on this as parents. The parents of struggling readers have felt alone for a long time, and I think they're not alone anymore. So do the work together.
And New York City, which is the biggest city in the world with the greatest number of teachers, is doing a lot to move things in the right direction. How powerful do you think that is as a message for other cities and other states across the US to actually really embrace and win the reading wars once and for all?
I think it's really important when big, high-profile school districts put a stake in the ground about this one. And I think school districts really do and should learn from each other. I think there's a huge opportunity here for school districts to learn from each other about best practice. I think it's also a really important time for everyone to stay curious, stay humble, do your due diligence, do your research, talk to your colleagues, find out what's working, what's not working, to continuously improve.
Amazing. Thank you. Thanks for all you do. Thanks so much.
So, all good things come to those who wait. The mayor is here, and we're very honored that he sped his way through New York traffic. It's clearly going to be a really big 48 hours for New York and America. So it's an honor to have him here today with us. As you know, the mayor is Made by Dyslexia himself, and he and Made by Dyslexia have partnered up in the last year to create this extraordinary program, a groundbreaking world-first program, and we're honored to have him now on the stage with Kate Griggs.
Thank you, Mayor Adams. We've chosen a strange couple of days to be in New York City, haven't we? I think there's a lot going on and a lot of traffic around.
I'm sorry they announced me earlier. The traffic is terrible. If I had Virgin Airlines, I would have got here much easier.
Anyway, so pleased that you're here. We had the panel with the Chancellor and Deputy Chancellor and your team beforehand, so we've learnt all about the things that you're doing and the brilliant things you're doing to support dyslexic children. I'd love to talk to you about your own dyslexic thinking and how you think it's impacted and helped you to do what you do. Like many dyslexics, you are able to see the big picture. You're able to quickly look across a lot of information and get to the crux of a problem. And getting things done is it's going to be a lot easier to get things done if you can do that. It's a brilliant problem-solving skill. Tell us why you felt so passionate about dyslexia and how you use that thinking to really get to the crux of that.
Well, first, I think that we were living almost a Shakespearean tragedy when you have gifted young people who learn differently were actually ostracized from society. And growing up in South Jamaica, Queens, for many years I would walk in the classroom and you'll see on the back of the chair the dumb student. And children in their innocence can be cruel to those who are different. And, Mommy didn't know what was wrong with me. Many teachers thought I was lazy. And it was just a painful moment. And you stand up and you have to read and you stumble over the words and you cringe and you start to think differently about yourself. The experience and that evolution of sitting in college one day, and I can remember like it was yesterday, hearing a young lady listening to a documentary on dyslexia. And I heard it and took it out and listened to it. And I said, damn it, I'm not dumb, I'm dyslexic. And it was like a load off my shoulders. And as I went through life, I'm the mayor now, but that wasn't who I wanted to be. I wanted to be a computer programmer. And those skills sort of prepared me for this journey now. And so I say to everyone who may have a child that's dyslexic, they just learn differently. And we need to give them the systems and support. And I'm just really proud to have a chancellor that gets it. And we are going to really, partner with organizations like yours and just really move this conversation forward.
And who helped you to spot your own dyslexic thinking skills? I know you're very passionate about the strengths, just as we are. Did somebody help you, or did you find your own way with that?
The help came from the video, and that's why artists are so important. It's more than what we view. They can alter our lives. And once I identified that I was dyslexic, I reached out to some of the teachers that were at the college and stated that I saw this video, and I had no idea what dyslexia was. Back then, our parents didn't know. They had no idea. It was just that if your child didn't comprehend information, that child was considered to be just lazy, he was dumb, he didn't give it his all. And, you know, mommy would sit up and just study with me late at night, hoping that I would retain the information. And I really believe she has 6 children. She loved them all, but she adored me, because I think she adored me because I was dyslexic, and she didn't know that, and she was just giving me all that care. And so having that parent and support system is crucial to overcome any form of difference in how you learn.
Yeah, having that champion is just, it's totally life-changing, isn't it? And it's often a mom or a parent. And do you think that your dyslexic thinking helps you in your work as mayor?
Oh, without a doubt. You know, I would not be mayor if I was not dyslexic. And you know, it's very fascinating. Whenever I run into successful people who own their own business or doing something in some tech, they'll pull me over and say, hey, I'm dyslexic, you know. And there are so many successful people who are there. But think about this for the moment. Let's look at the other side of it. 40% of the inmates at our jail, Rikers Island, are dyslexic. And I was on a pathway to join that rank. I felt, why was I going to school? I was tired of being humiliated. I started participating. We used to have illegal numbers in this city, and I was one of the top illegal number runners in the city. I just found I needed to find another way to survive. Imagine if we were doing what we're doing now with dyslexia screening and phonics for all of our children. We would not be filling our jails. The goal is not to only close buildings that house people who break the law. The goal is to close the pipeline that filled those buildings, and dyslexia is one of those pipelines we need to close.
%. It's really vital we do that now. I mean, it shouldn't be happening, but we also know that these people have such brilliant things to offer.
So true.
So, how do you think your 7-year-old self would feel if he looked at your success now?
You know, oh, that 7-year-old Eric. You know, it's amazing that children will always want to have the creativity that their unbelievable minds really allow them to have. I think the worst thing in life that happens is when 7-year-olds grow up to be adults. If we can maintain our creativity, and I knew that there was something there. I knew that there was something that was better, and I felt in my heart that I was better than what I was going through. And staying up late and reading and studying, and, you know, those days of, oh my God, I used to fear when the alarm clock went off, and I thought, you know, someone's bringing back so many emotions right now, but because I just didn't want to have to get up in the morning and go into this class. And so if I can just talk to that 7-year-old right now, I would just tell him or her, it's going to be all right. That's what my mommy used to say. She was whispering in my ear, baby, you got this. You got this. And I wish I could just lean in the ear of those young children right now who are living in an area of uncertainty, and particularly in areas where you don't have the luxury of your parents understanding. My goal as the mayor is just constantly to whisper in their ear, baby, you got this because your mayor got you.
Yeah. Mayor Adams, thank you so much. I think that is just the most perfect place to stop the conversation. Thank you so much. It's amazing. Thank you.
Great being here.
Thank you. Now, I'm sitting here because I'm not quite sure what's going to be happening next. I'm waiting to be told, as we've changed the order, which is never a good thing for dyslexic people.
There are 7.753 billion people on the Earth, and 1 in 5 of us is dyslexic. That's 1.55 billion people. And here's the thing. Many of us won't be properly recognised for our different way of thinking, especially when we're younger. We'll be told we're slow or unable to keep up. Our potential won't be realised. Our future's made more difficult. Because over half the children who leave school unable to read or write are dyslexic. We're more likely to be disadvantaged. We're more likely to be incarcerated. So what's failed us? Where have things gone wrong? Education. Dyslexics have shaped the world. The light bulb, the smartphone, flight, they all sprang from the wonders of dyslexic thinking. We have the skills the future needs. So imagine if the world could unlock the potential of 1.55 billion of us. It's a mind-bogglingly big task that can start with something so small. What if we started in schools, training educators to learn about and spot dyslexia and the best ways to teach the children who have it? Made by Dyslexia and Microsoft have created modules allowing educators to do just that. And all 100,000 educators in New York City have already done so. Now, we are asking all educators all over the world to support us and receive the free online training. Take a day to learn dyslexia, change a child's life, and change the world.
So powerful, isn't it? And so simple. And so many of us who are around to change the world. And also, just listening to the mayor there, I think many of us also, if someone asks you that question about your 7-year-old self, I think a lot of people we've spoken to over the past few days all get emotional just at that point when you have to go back to that moment where you have to think about how hard it was when you were 7. So thanks to the mayor for sharing both his plans and also that deepness inside of all of us that I think is just so powerful as well, because it's about resilience, isn't it? But we also know, dyslexia is about something else. What does it look like? And how far can it take us? Really excited to introduce you to a man who harnessed his dyslexic thinking to become one of the world's greatest explorers. Others had failed, but he used his dyslexic thinking to discover the wreck of the Titanic, buried deep at the bottom of the ocean. I'm really excited to welcome Dr. Robert Ballard, who is an oceanographer, an explorer, as well as Dr. Maggie Adarin-Pocock, who is a space scientist and Made by Dyslexia ambassador. You're going to love this conversation. Please welcome them.
Hello, everyone. And I'd just like to say how excited I am to be here at this assembly, but especially here in New York City. It's just magical. So my name is Dr. Maggie Adarin-Pocock. I'm a space scientist, a science communicator, a broadcaster, and an author. I am incredibly proud to be one of the 10,000 scientists that worked on the James Webb Space Telescope. Over the last 18 years... Oh, thank you. Over the last 18 years, I have spoken to over 450,000 people directly about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths. And I must admit, I'm knackered. More recently, I was incredibly honoured by the toy company Mattel, who made me into a Barbie doll. But most of all, I am especially proud to be made by dyslexia. Thank you. Now, without any further ado, I want to introduce you to our guest, but is a man who needs no introduction. He is an explorer extraordinaire. He finds wrecks that no one else can. Please welcome Dr. Robert Ballard.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Bob, we've been speaking, and I think we've got so much in common. You explore the depths of the ocean, and I explore out there. But we've got lots of overlap here. But can you tell me how your dyslexic thinking helped you find the wreck of the Titanic?
Well, that's, what's fascinating, and most people don't realize, I was not the person that was supposed to find the Titanic. I was working with the French, and the French had a new sonar system, which is really good because it can see in the dark. And my job was to come after they found the Titanic to photograph it. And what they didn't know, I was on a top secret mission ahead of them to look at a nuclear submarine. And so I had to do my mission first, and then they didn't find it. And now I had 12 days. Other explorers had had 60, 70, 80 days. I had 12 days, and I went, oh my God. Because my world, the world I work in, is completely dark. It's absolutely dark, pitch dark down there, except for a few particles falling down from above. So I'm sitting here going, how am I going to find the Titanic with a flashlight and a camera?
That's a challenge, isn't it, for anyone?
So here's where dyslexia kicked in. I says, okay, let's imagine how it sank. So it hit an iceberg, yep. As it sank, it went vertical, yep. It broke in half, yep. Oh, it broke in half. That meant it dumped out a whole bunch of stuff, like salt shakers, okay. So let's follow that down. Well, let's see. The heavy ones are going to fall right away. It's 12,000 feet, bam, like a bowling ball.
Wow.
But then all this light stuff must have come out. And as it fell, oh yeah, the Labrador Current that brought the iceberg down from the north must have carried that lighter stuff away from the bowling ball. Yeah. So there should be a long, 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 long trail of stuff getting lighter and lighter and lighter. And since the Labrador Current's north to south, there must be a line down there that's over a mile, 2 miles long. Don't look for the Titanic. Look for the stuff. And so I say, well, what's the lightest stuff to come out of the Titanic? Lifeboats. They didn't sink at all. Well, let's start with the lifeboats are, because when they tell you they know where something is, it's never there. So if you go to where they say it is and it's not there, which it always is, it's not there, you have equal probability of in all directions. So you want to go where it's definitely not.
Yes.
Could have gone to the South Pole and been great, but I didn't want to go that far. So I went to where the lifeboats were sunk, and I went, and so here's this line, and I went this way, this way, this way.
Yes.
Real quick with my camera. And on the 8th day, boom, I come across the trail, turn north, Titanic, done.
I guess it's this dyslexic thinking to be able to visualize, even when in the pitch dark, you can visualize what's going on out there. But now I want to go on to sort of another topic, which is slightly controversial, but it's how failure features in your work.
Oh, yeah. I mean, failure is the greatest teacher you'll ever learn to have.
Yes.
But I started, when I was a little kid, I didn't know I was dyslexic. I just didn't read a whole lot of books, but I went and saw this movie, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I'm 12. There's little Bobby Ballard.
Oh.
I had, here we go. And lo and behold, I came home and my parents, they always said, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I want to be Captain Nemo. And they said, they could have gone in the other room and said, Houston, we have a problem. But they worked with it. They said, we have a submarine. And it had a window. And so I became a naval officer. I became an oceanographer. And I began developing the technology to work in total darkness. And I wanted to study the bottom of the ocean. So let's show you what the ocean looks like. Here it is. But it's in pitch black. Can you imagine trying to explore the Rocky Mountains at night in a flashlight with a storm and snow? That was the world I had to go and explore. The biggest mountain ranges, the deepest trenches. But then what I did was I have a command center. It's pretty cool. And in my command center, I stand there and I look at all of the gadgetry and all of that stuff. sonars and tracking systems, and it all goes in my head. I close my eyes, and I imagine it.
Yes. So that's in your head.
And what my little daughter says, Emily Rose, with a button nose, she's dyslexic. She puts things on my desk, and she said, "Not all who wander are lost." And I'm not lost down there. And I've spent a lifetime boldly going where no one has else gone before on planet Earth, and most of it is in total darkness, but not in my dyslexic mind.
Now, I've got 30 seconds left.
On the next mission.
So we saw a wonderful picture of you as a 12-year-old. If you could go back in time, what would you say to that 12-year-old? And what would that 12-year-old think of you?
You're looking at the 12-year-old. I saw no advantage to grow up.
Yeah, I think I'm about 7, actually. But
not a chance. All children are born scientists. They have this little flame of curiosity, and they, within 3 questions of why, they've exhausted your knowledge. And so my job is to talk with dyslexic kids and make sure that pilot light never goes out.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Wonderful to speak to you, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we leave now?
Lovely.
All right. The hook.
Thank you.
I'm not chasing you off, I promise. Thank you so much, Bob and Maggie. It is really proof that dyslexic thinking can take you anywhere. And again, it's just so important to nurture those skills from the beginning, especially when you're a little guy with your bow tie. So we're hoping, yes.
This is a round hole. Our schools are filled with round holes because a large majority of students fit snugly within them. Yes, round holes are great, they all say. Let's put lots of round holes in our classrooms because they're uniform and predictable. And if you don't fit neatly into our round holes, well, there must be something wrong with you. But what if all those round hole people are wrong? What if some people, just by being outside of a round hole, can start to see the world entirely differently? What if they have exactly the type of thinking that can change the world? Yes, sure. But is that even possible? What kind of person doesn't benefit from being in a round hole?
Isn't it just the most fantastic video and the concept? It's so great to be a square peg. So I want to introduce our next panel. It's about reshaping schools to empower dyslexic thinking. We really need every child to think like a dyslexic child, don't we? And it's not really about leveling the playing field. It's about changing the game completely. And we also know that technology, AI, the metaverse, can actually have a positive impact on a child's education if they are dyslexic. So I want to introduce our next panel and also our special guest, Her Royal Highness, Princess Beatrice, who is also made by dyslexia. Enjoy.
Thank you and welcome to our wonderful panel, Princess Beatrice.
Thank you, Kate.
Gavin Horgan, Deirdre Costum, and Dr. Maggie Adair-Pocock. So we've all been inspired by the fact that New York City has recognized what needs to be happening. We know what needs to happen in schools to level the playing field for dyslexic children. We know it's about training teachers and making sure these kids can read and learn and be supported in a mainstream classroom. But what next for education? Because we know that dyslexic thinking is vital. It's what every workplace is looking for. But our education system is not geared up to support and empower it in the way it needs to. Gavin, let me pass the first question to you. Millfield School is a school that has always recognised dyslexic thinking, has always realised that dyslexics have strengths. What do we need to do to make sure every school does that?
It's definitely not rocket science, and it's really exciting to me that the world has woken up to the need for dyslexic thinking. Previously, I suspect dyslexic students were viewed as an inconvenience in schools because they learnt differently. But now the world is coming round to the fact that that's a joy and that's what we need. Millfield, since 1935, has understood how to handle divergent thinking and has done it really successfully. We have about 2,000 students, so we do it at scale. And how do we do it? We do it with good teaching for all, good training for all teachers, which is what you're doing. We do it by recognizing that what's good for dyslexic learners is good for all learners. So if we teach in a way which supports dyslexic learners, actually every other learner in the classroom improves along the way. We recognize that children have brilliance in them, and our job as educators is to help them find that brilliance. And our job is to flex around the child rather than to operate a cookie-cutter model of education which expects the child to conform to the education. And if we do that, and if we encourage children to look to have a dyslexic thinker in their group, when they're forming a project group, they should be looking out for a dyslexic thinker to be part of that project group, then that's when we will gain change and we will move to a point of virtue rather than a point of inconvenience.
And how important is AI and the metaverse and these massive advancements in technology for actually making us move faster to change things?
Oh, AI is fantastic. It's really exciting from my point of view. So just to push the envelope a little bit, there are some people in education who are anxious about AI, aren't there? And they think that it will lead to plagiarism by children and all of those things. There were people that were anxious about radio. There were people that were anxious about light bulbs. There are people that are anxious about AI. What AI is going to do is two really important things from my point of view. Firstly, from the point of view of a dyslexic thinker, AI is going to deal with all of that trash that they have had to wade through that has made things so difficult for them. So it's going to take away those barriers to learning that existed for them in the past. And secondly, AI is going to prompt education exam boards and education departments around the world to transform their system of assessment. Because at the moment, we brand about 70% of dyslexics as failures at 16. The mayor was just making the really important point about the percentage of the prison population with dyslexia. The same is true in the UK where I'm from. And that all stems from the fact that we've got a broken assessment system, and AI is going to force us to change that.
And Deirdre, Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, has said that he sees AI as a useful co-pilot in the workplace, not replacing humans, but assisting them. In education, AI is about assimilating knowledge, and dyslexia is about innovating with knowledge. How do you think it's going to impact dyslexics?
Well, I absolutely share Gavin's enthusiasm, and this idea of co-pilot that you mentioned is really exciting, and thinking about the role that a teacher plays as a guide and mentor and how AI can support them in that journey. So if you have students in your class that are learning at different paces or have different strengths, AI really presents an opportunity for adaptive learning, for personalizing the learning experience. So you can follow that creative imagination and follow the big picture thinking skills that so many of the dyslexic thinkers have, and not get tied up in traditional forms of assessment. And so overcoming maybe a fear of a writing assignment and allowing the student to use the AI to guide the assignment to help them uncover their strengths and use their creative thinking, while also displaying it in the output that they create.
And it's going to be so exciting, isn't it? Princess Beatrice, I know as part of the charity The Big Change, you're very focused on changing how we assess children and measure them. What do you think needs to happen? What do you think the future is going to hold if we really try and do this right?
Well, I mean, I think it's, I completely echo what's already been said as well, but I think that the wonderful thing about where we are in the world these days is that we're going down this personalization route. So I think assessment really needs to change in order to reflect that. Each child needs to be reflective of their own abilities, and I think that's where we really can support teachers in order to be that frontline assessors as well, that it should be looking at a 360-degree view of what that child needs. We started Big Change in order to to reimagine education, which really is a kind of a lofty task, and thank goodness for this wonderful panel and individuals like you, Kate, helping us do it. But, education means something so different to each person, and I think if we really want to see the changes that are coming, and they're coming at rapid speed, I think it's all about a collective understanding of what each child really needs to moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And Maggie, science, you always say, is about imagination and creativity, not about exams. What do you think about what needs to happen so we're really nurturing those thoughts, and AI?
Yes. So I think at the moment we are teaching kids not to think, but teaching kids to sort of regurgitate information. And I've seen this directly, where I've been in an interview and someone's come in and I've said, okay, I want to give you a scenario. Yes, what do you think about this? And they say, oh no, we didn't cover that in the syllabus. I can't talk about that. And you think, no, I want you to think about it. Use your imagination. Use your creativity, your innovation. So, ooh, that sounds dodgy. So you think, no. This is what we need to be teaching kids, encouraging them to use those skills. These are the skills that dyslexics have, but everybody needs to be using these skills. So finding ways to do that. Now, I think the challenge really stands that measuring sort of facts and figures and how kids regurgitate them is really easy to do. 1 + 1 is 2. Tick, move on. But what we need to do now is actually find a way of measuring creativity, encouraging it. And so I think that's where, as you say, Deirdre, it's how AI can really help us. So it's moving away from the old system and encouraging a new system, and it's a new system that we need for the future.
Can I add one thing? I actually work in artificial intelligence and data analytics, and the only reason I can do my job, which is because I'm dyslexic. And being able to lean into that as a communication skill, working to find new ways with which we can adapt, has been incredibly powerful for how I really see AI, not necessarily with that buddy system as well. So I think we can encourage more young people to recognize that they can be a more discerning learner. It feels a little bit like AI, less like AI is going to be sort of a slow drip feed, and they have more passion and control of actually what they want to see from their environment.
Yes, it's a massively exciting step forward for dyslexics. So let me put this question to all of you. If we could wave a magic wand and create the education system that we all think we need to have, what would it be? Would you like to start with that one, Gavin? What would it look like, the perfect school?
The perfect school, you can always sense the perfect school. You can sense from the noise of excitement that exists and pervades across the perfect school, so it's definitely not silent. The perfect school will be one which recognizes the need for personalized assessment, as Princess Beatrice has said. It will use AI in a completely empowering way that will support learners of different sorts so that they can access the curriculum in their own way. We were talking a lot about assessments. In my experience, assessments measure schools and they measure teachers. And that's not what they should do. They should measure children. And they should give the child a sensible reflection of where they are at on their journey. We have education policy around the world which has been developed in an echo chamber of a bunch of blokes typically that have been to good universities and were tested based on the amount of knowledge they could hold on to and then regurgitate. And they think that's good for children. I think they do that just so that they can stay in jobs rather than working out what's actually good for children. Because it's quite frightening, isn't it, to those sorts of people? Because what we're on the verge of is unleashing what we need. 50% of the workforce needs to be retrained by 2025. The World Economic Forum, I think showed us that. And the skills that we need typically are many of those dyslexic thinking skills. And so the last bit that I would hope for would be a direct connection from schools through to universities and through to the world of employment.
And Deirdre, arguably, we need to be teaching all students to think like dyslexics. What do you think that perfect school looks like?
Absolutely. If we think from the student, from the learner's perspective, immersive environments, you've mentioned that a couple times. I have a lot of experience working with Minecraft in education, and that is such a powerful force. Number one, it meets the students in an area where they're interested, and particularly for the dyslexic thinkers with creativity and big ideas, that creates an environment that really encourages exploration. It encourages experimentation, which is exactly what you want in the learning process. And so whether it's students in New York City designing sustainable New York City parks, or a student learning about fractions in a Minecraft world using the blocks, they're in there and they're feeling in control of their learning, and they're following their interests and their curiosity. So it leads to a much deeper learning, the analytical skills, the critical thinking skills. It's surprising that a video game like Minecraft might provide that environment, but those are the skills that people need for success in work and life. And then taking that and combining that with AI and the opportunity, as Princess Beatrice has said, to, again, take that sort of creative imagination thinking and use an AI to maybe further develop into a business plan or a presentation. It really helps build confidence along the journey and also create something that really represents the deep thinking and the ideas that are coming from that dyslexic mind. And then on the education side, in terms of transformation that we're seeing, is education leaders using the data and the insights that they're getting from the learning process really to make decisions, to provide personalized learning experiences, to ideally help recognize where they can adapt the curriculum and the lessons to the needs of their students, and provide things like AI-guided content and assessments that go much deeper into critical thinking and analytical skills that are going to serve people well in work and life well beyond school.
And Maggie, your passion for science and STEM or STEAM, what do we need to do?
Well, I think we need to acknowledge we've come a long way. When I was at school, I was sort of shunted in the back of the class. I was undiagnosed with dyslexia, but I was just the dumb black kid. Sort of with the safety scissors and the glue. Yeah, keep her occupied. I have a 13-year-old daughter who's out in the audience, and her school experience is much better, but there's still so much more we can do. And I think it's sort of this customization. It's wonderful, and one of the things that dyslexics are good at is getting to know ourselves, knowing our strengths and weaknesses. When we get out there in the world and we work as teams, so isn't it nice to know what we're really good at and what we're not so good at, so that when we do form teams, we form the effective teams. But what I love to do is, when I go out to see kids, I like to talk about the desire to aspire. I want each and every kid to know I can reach the stars because, I have that drive, that ambition, that vision of the future. So I want every kid to feel empowered and to be able to use their creativity, to not have it shut down, to be able to ask questions and move on in the future, to literally reach for the stars.
Amazing. Princess Beatrice, what does a reimagined education system look like?
I think one that really leans into that explorer, that sense of exploring and creating the mindset where, again, we're not just teaching children how to think, but what to think, but we're teaching them how to think and how to think outside the box. And, unfortunately, at the moment, we've created an education system that's entirely exclusive to some of the most important thinkers that we have. And that is incredibly dangerous because then things happen over here. So I think what we need to think about, and I think that we've got parents, teachers, and school children that all need to be involved in the conversation. So reimagining education is about stakeholders getting excited about the fact that this is not something that's, left to other people to sort out. Everybody has a responsibility to imagine what they want, and then again, focusing on this opportunity to explore and whatever, and to completely echo what everyone said on the panel. Gosh, you're all very inspiring. Thank you. Also, thank you for my Britney Spears moment today. It's great. But we have a much more of an opportunity now to make people excited about the options, and I think that's what I want. What rooms like this are all about, to lean into that excitement and the opportunities.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been a really, really amazing discussion. Thank you.
Thank you to our wonderful panel. Such good suggestions. Really appreciate your insight. Really, it's clear the future is bright for dyslexic children if we embrace the change. Now, I want to talk about sport. Did you know that some of the world's greatest sports champions are made by dyslexia, from Magic Johnson to Lewis Hamilton to the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali, and there are lots more. So they used their dyslexic thinking skills of visualization, of spatial awareness to sort of really push the limits. So we are delighted to introduce NFL superstar Rashan Gary, as well as USF 2000 racing driver Elliot Cox, and they will be joined by the Score's NFL insider Jordan Schultz. Enjoy this as well.
Wow, a lot of people. I didn't anticipate this. Woo! My name is Jordan Schultz. I'm an NFL insider for The Score. I'm from Seattle, Washington. I was diagnosed early on with learning disabilities, severe learning disabilities, not dyslexia. We have since discovered throughout my daughter and son's learning that I also have a form of dyslexia. So I was really excited to have the opportunity to speak today to both Elliot and Rashan, as well as you. It's been a big journey over the last 9 months, and I feel, badly to say I didn't know much about it before, but now I feel like I really understand it and how important it is to empower young minds. So I'll start with Rashan. I don't say this lightly. He is an NFL superstar. We spent the last hour and a half talking, learning about his journey. If I could tell you, Rashan, or ask you about your 7-year-old self, and you could say to him what you know now about dyslexia, what do you think it would be?
Yeah, telling my 7-year-old self is, first off, to, block out the noise, and that's just from, fellow students, that's not understanding what you're going through, and because of that, it could be a more harsh and harder experience on you. So just cut down the outside noise, and actually, open up and talk to my mom. I feel like if I was opened up and talked to her sooner about, how I was feeling and, my struggles on the day-to-day, maybe, we could have found a way to, have me get help before. But, that's one thing, it's a couple things I'll tell my 7-year-old self. So, just block outside the outside noise, because kids my age don't understand, learning disabilities and what we're going through, and just communicate with my mom, so your parents, keep that open communication so they can help you and so they can have an understanding into your life and how you're feeling.
Elliot, for you, you were, you were diagnosed with dyslexia when you were 5. Six. So you're 15 now. You're racing at a very high level. But let's go back 9 years. What did you learn those first, let's say, year or two when you turned 7 and 8? Because you said that was the really important stage for you as you began your process.
Yeah. When I got diagnosed when I was 6, my dad actually got diagnosed around the same time as me. And what we both did, we tackled it as a challenge, not a problem. Dyslexia has always been something to overcome and not something that would set us back. Yeah. And we both tackled it together with school. We went through Orton Gillingham together, and it's just helped with my dyslexia. It's insurmountable, the change that I've seen, and it's just incredible how much it's helped. It's just been great.
Were either one of you, I guess the better question is, what was your response when both of you, Rashawn, I'll start with you, learned that you had dyslexia? It felt earlier like a sense of relief because now you knew what it was and now you could attack it. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, the first day that me and my mom found out, it was just like you're celebrating, a big birthday, or just how we just won a big game. Because for so long in my life, I found out I was dyslexic my 7th grade year. So you're around 12, 13 years old. So about 12, 13 years of my life, I was thinking something was wrong with me. Why can't I keep up with my other classmates? Why is my teacher skipping over me and not spending time to help me understand or help me learn and things like that? So I had to basically, once I found out, I had new confidence about myself. I was able to understand the problem, and me and my mom, we was able to find the evolution. So, when I found out, it was just day one, and I was able to start chipping away to, make my life better and build my confidence back up.
Beautiful. Elliot, for you? Especially as you got older, yeah.
What do you say?
Especially as you got older and you started to get more confidence.
Yeah, for sure. I was struggling a lot with reading, a lot with spelling. I did not enjoy doing it at all. It was a battle with my parents to get me to do it. And figuring out I had dyslexia, like I said, it's a challenge, but it was also, like Rashawn said, sort of a relief knowing that we knew what was going on and there was a way to overcome it. So definitely a challenge, but a good thing as well, especially because I can come here to these things and share my experiences and help other kids with my charity.
Rashawn, for you, does having dyslexia, especially given your experience with it, do you ever feel like it helps you on the field? Or do you lean on it?
Yes, absolutely. So in my profession, being a professional football player, my dyslexia skill that I lean on is my memory. So from schemes, we're able to see 11, 12 personnel all the way to 14. From seeing 3 slots out to 2 over here to knowing when this guy moved this way, just seeing it the first time, I'm able to break it down and I'm able to line up, see this, and I can kind of play to what I'm kind of feeling. So it's kind of cool how, even when we're on the sideline and we're making on-fly adjustments, okay, I need you to cut inside, or if you see this, do this, and I'm able to see it, and you don't have to tell me, more than 2 times, and that's a key thing, when they tell you to do it the first time, that you do it right. So I'm happy that, I'm able to have that, my superpower.
It's a superpower, yeah. What Rashawn just described in about 2 minutes, it might have gone over your head. It definitely went over my head. And this is what I do. The complex football, I would say football takes a few minutes to learn, but a lifetime to master. What he just described are complexities that happen on the fly. And those adjustments you're talking about are often the difference between making a play and not, winning and losing. I would imagine with racing, it's similar because it's a split second, right? So elaborate for me, Elliot, if you would, on how dyslexia actually helps empower you as a race car driver.
Dyslexia, being a dyslexic race car driver, is definitely a blessing, I think, because with dyslexia, a lot of people, especially me, I can take like a mental snapshot of a picture of like a track map that my coach is showing me.
Before the race?
Before the race, but in practice. What people don't know about racing that aren't into racing is the fastest way around the track is normally the shortest, and there's apexes in the corners that will give you the best run off of the corner, the best traction, etc. And to be able to see on paper what my coaches are showing me, if they draw it where the apex is, to be able to see it and put it into practice when I'm driving is definitely a huge help to me.
Do you feel like, this might be a strange question, but would you actually, if I could say to you, you won't have dyslexia, we'll just change it, would you, I feel like both of you would say you would actually say no to that. Is that accurate?
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I say no just because throughout my dyslexia journey and, me battling through that, I done found myself. And like I said, I done found the confidence in myself. And just I'm able to have, opportunity to come and sit in front of, kids, parents that needs to, learn and hear stories like this. Because I wish, me and my mom was in a crowd like this, listening and soaking in all the information that we can.
How about you?
Yeah, I agree for sure. I think my platform with racing and being able to share my challenges and overcoming dyslexia has been more of a help than anything, and I really enjoy being able to share my struggles in overcoming and my story with other children and adults who have dyslexia.
Yeah, I feel like, as I sit here, and this is such an unbelievable opportunity, and I really do appreciate this, trying to cherish it. One of the things that I've learned over the last 9 months with our kids, my wife and I, is that you want to look at dyslexia as an opportunity. You want to empower the young minds and not look at it as a crutch. So I would say to both of you, thank you, because not only have you done that, but now you're using your platform, football, race car driving, to make a difference. And I mean, I feel old sitting here with both of you. I'm just 37, 25, 15. I mean, it's remarkable. And this is what I think this is all about, is empowering and trying to share the message that not only is it okay to have dyslexia, but it can actually be a great thing. So I would close with that.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Jordan, Elliot, and Rashan. Really appreciate it. Absolutely. Thank you. Enjoy the conversation off stage. What an invigorating first half. I mean, we've got so much more to come. I'm really excited about that. And as you know, dyslexic thinkers are used to rearranging the furniture in our brain or dealing with that sort of fly-by-the-night movement. So take this as a symbolic representation of dyslexic thinking as we go on. Now, the first half here has reinforced to me that we really have to support every teacher in every city and every country, and of course, spot and support dyslexia early on. We're about to have also that 20-minute interval that I promised you. Please do, before you go, scan those QR codes. Every dollar counts, as I said. We really want to be able to support teachers and the youth as we make these changes across the globe. When you go out for the interval, please return promptly, because we are going to start on time. We have a lot of special guests coming up, including Sir Richard Branson. So definitely.
It is estimated that over 6 million people in the UK have dyslexia, defined as a learning difficulty many people refer to as a hidden disability.
It wasn't great for self-esteem.
I felt stupid and I felt less than other people.
I didn't like that feeling.
The current perception of the word dyslexia is definitely stuck in an outdated narrative.
This negative perception is incredibly damaging in the workplace. And it's an injustice because so many people with dyslexia have gone on to be amazingly successful.
Our research found that dyslexic people have exactly the skills the workplace is looking for, as outlined by the World Economic Forum.
LinkedIn is the place where you show off your workplace skills. So we've changed the platform. We're allowing people all across the globe to add dyslexic thinking as a skill on their profile.
And since we launched the campaign, we've had more and more people come forwards and say, I am dyslexic.
I'm proud to be a dyslexic thinker.
And Dictionary.com has added dyslexic thinking as an official term.
Dyslexic thinking.
We're now actively seeking candidates with dyslexic thinking skills, and that's true of many other global companies like Microsoft, E&Y and Facebook.
Dyslexic thinking has helped me see solutions where I think others saw problems.
It's absolutely vital because the world is changing.
And that's the sort of thinking that leaders have. That's the sort of thinking that evolves humanity.
Welcome back, everyone. If you haven't already done it, now's the time to add dyslexic thinking on your LinkedIn profile. It's just the most fantastic campaign, isn't it? So I hope you enjoyed the interval, stretched your legs, got something to drink. And as you know, in the first half, we talked about education, and now we're going to talk about the workplace. And as the film showed us, every single workplace needs dyslexic thinking. So I'm delighted to introduce the Chief Executive of Randstad, Mike Smith, who will moderate this fantastic panel.
What a pleasure it is to be here. My name is Mike Smith. I'm the Chief Executive of Randstad Enterprise, and I have the pleasure of hosting this fantastic panel this afternoon. As a little bit of a personal story on myself, my beautiful wife Lindsay is also made by dyslexia. So we just saw this incredible video about LinkedIn and Made by Dyslexia creating this campaign which led to dyslexic thinking being added as a skill on the LinkedIn platform, not to mention being added into the dictionary. Nicole, let's start with you. Why was this campaign so successful?
I think it was successful because we were able to shift from outdated stigmas to instead focus on the really real skills that people with dyslexia bring to the workforce: communication, reasoning. We were also able to give people the ability to take action, to take back their dyslexia as a skill. And we saw incredible results. In the first 2 weeks of the campaign, more than 10,000 people added dyslexic thinking as a skill on LinkedIn. But it's not stopped. We're seeing on average every month 1,000 more people added as a skill, and it's still going. We're also seeing the importance of really prominent voices like Richard Branson talking openly about dyslexia. And really, I think it comes down to people are hungry for a change and a reframe around this really important conversation.
Excellent. Let's stick with the theme of skills for a minute, because Matt, you have exposure to some of the world's largest customers from a recruiting perspective.
Yeah.
And a lot of them opine about the skills gap that they still face in the workforce at the moment. How can this emergence of dyslexic skills help close some of that skills gap that we hear about so often?
Well, I think it's a great question. I think we've heard before the interval from the education sector around how important specific skills are around dyslexia. I think you're seeing reports coming from the World Economic Forum, EY, and other organizations that really focus around the expertise dyslexic thinkers have around creativity, analytical thinking, leadership, social influence, those sorts of things. Dyslexic thinkers are exceptional at that. But as we sit here today, the average organization believes, so 60, 70% of most organizations believe they do a fantastic job bringing in dyslexic thinkers. You ask that question to dyslexic thinkers, that number's 14%. So clearly we have a skills gap and we have a problem, because if we're genuinely going to close that gap, we need to work better with dyslexic thinkers.
So lots of good work going on, but still gaps to close.
Most definitely. Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned there about EY. We have Hank here from EY. Hank, we've heard a lot about making sure that we're being very intentional and thoughtful about education, particularly in the idea of making sure those pipelines are flourishing for dyslexic talent in the future. How are EY thinking about that?
Yeah, so I think before we get to the how, I kind of want to start with the why, right? As Simon Sinek taught us, always start with the why. And our why at EY is building a better working world. And you think about what are we talking about in this World Dyslexia Summit is how does dyslexic thinking drive building a better working world? So we referenced the World Economic Forum and the study. And you think about, we talked about AI in the last panel. We're coming out of a pandemic. We're talking about digital disruption. All these incredible changes and opportunities. And when we look at the skills, we just recognize we need the most inclusive teams to drive that. We create the best solutions for our clients when we bring and put together the highest performing team. So we really started that. We think about the skill sets that dyslexic thinking we talked about, exploring, imagining, connecting, all those superhuman strengths. So it's really starting with that why, and then we really focused on the how. When we think about the how, we want to drive it, some real lessons on leadership at the top, driving those learnings throughout those organizations, using the power of storytelling throughout the organization to share people's experiences. And that, fostering that environment has made it an attractive place to bring in skill sets of all different types, including dyslexic thinking, and empowering that in, and super linked in, and helping us attract that talent. But as importantly, making sure we can retain that talent so they feel that they're really bringing their whole self to work and having that environment. So it's really connecting that why all the way in through the how.
Excellent. The idea of the plethora of dyslexic skills must be attractive, but we know that the ability to be able to continue to have recruitment processes that actually screen them in is something that still needs work. Laura, I know at HSBC this is something that you've been incredibly passionate about championing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we hired nearly 70,000 people last year, so the numbers are pretty huge. And I think building on Hank's point, for us it's really important to build an inclusive organisation and for people to feel able to be themselves at work. So one of the most important things is for people to feel that they can disclose that they're dyslexic, and that's something that we've talked a lot about internally in terms of building awareness so that people feel proud to tell us that they're dyslexic. And that, you know, we as an employer will see it as a superpower and not something that they should be thinking about hiding from us. So that sort of disclosure is really important. I think the other bit that I would also sort of flag is we've been working really hard on the sort of candidate care experience and making sure that people are supported with the right level of adjustments in any types of processes that we're doing. So that's another big area of focus. I would say also just around processes, so thinking about role descriptions and also about the assessments that we use and making sure that they're really fair and inclusive again. And then the final thing I'm quite excited about, so over the last year we've started to actually trial and put in place some pilots of actual targeted campaigns for neurodiverse and dyslexic candidates. So we're doing that in several markets around the world.
Excellent. I feel that's a great segue to go to Jenny, because Jenny, I know that at Microsoft, you've also been specifically focusing on targeting and attracting and hiring dyslexic and neurodiverse talent. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Absolutely. So it's not just important that we have disabled talent at a company like Microsoft. In fact, all of us, we urgently need it. If we're going to create inclusive and accessible technology, I am a nerd. I'm a very proud nerd. I love it. But we've got to have people with disabilities, people who are neurodiverse, which includes dyslexia. Neurodiversity is that umbrella term that includes autism, ADD, dyspraxia, and dyslexia. If we have people in the core and the fabric of our company, we are quite simply going to create better nerdery. And we need that technology, right? So, game on. I can't hear you, but game on. I do think some of what we've already has come out of Microsoft. In 2017, we launched the Immersive Reader. That was designed by dyslexics at Microsoft. And then you look at what we have with this new generation of GPT and AI coming through. If we have people who are dyslexic, you're going to get tools that are quite simply better for you. So yes, we proactively hire through a neurodiversity hiring gig. We don't care if you can't spell. That's what spell check's for. We want you to come as you are. And we want you to really put in that application.
Excellent answer. Nicole, I feel like I should come back to you, because before this panel, you said that spell check saved my life in the early couple of years of my career. And you've worked at some of the most illustrious large tech companies in the world. Can you tell us a little bit about how your dyslexic skills enabled you to be successful in that career so far?
Well, quite simply, I would not have the job I have, the career I've been lucky enough to have, if Microsoft Word and spell check didn't exist. But it wouldn't have happened. And that's an incredible gift that I feel like I got early in my career, but I'd be lying if I didn't acknowledge it was really hard early on. I'd make mistakes. I still make mistakes. I'd spell things wrong in email, and I've been taken harshly to task over it. But getting past that first few years, I started to be able to see some of the advantages of being dyslexic. I'm a very creative problem solver. I'm able to look at things from all sorts of different perspectives, and that's a gift. It's a skill that I have because I am dyslexic. And I think in this moment that we're in, where with advances in AI and all these incredible technology developments, we're all going to have to learn how to learn again, and dyslexics have a real advantage in this moment.
We heard a little bit about AI on the previous panel, and I feel we should come back to Jenny on that, and I can see you're excited to say something about it. We've seen Microsoft recently launch Copilot to much fanfare. Is generative AI a success enabler for those with dyslexia?
Yes. Yeah, but in all seriousness, generative AI, which is this incredible new technology coming through, and we're very proud to work with OpenAI to really help infuse some of it. But what is it? It is basically taking what it can from enormous libraries of data and bringing that into very simplistic forms. So go to Bing. Now, I love Bing. I worked on Bing many years ago. It's a really good search engine. Just ignore that Google thing for a minute. Go to Bing. But others do exist. I acknowledge that. But you can go to them and you can ask the questions that you need to, the prompts that you need to in your next research. So I was researching, hey, where should I stay in New York if I'm going to be speaking at the Lincoln Center? Where should I go eat with Isn't Juniors? And you can go and figure out these very complex questions and get that information back. It is then for you to work in a co-pilot way. You own that. It's not writing it for you. It's giving you what you need to then generate the right answers that you need in return. It is a complete and utter time-saving, productive machine.
Sounds very exciting.
It is.
When we think a little bit about actually putting to use the dyslexic skills that already exist in our organization, Hank, let's start with you. How are you concretely going about that at the moment?
Yeah, we talked a lot about those skills. And before I get to the positive, I think 70% of dyslexics hide that from their workforce today. So think about that. We talk a lot in the disability space about the cost of covering, all that lost value that it's not being captured by firms like myself. When we look at that, I think about it in a leadership model. I think it was Tim Kite who said leadership is about creating a clear, compelling vision of the future. We talked a lot about that, where that is. Creating an alignment and removing obstacles. So in the alignment space, we really look at thinking about how do we help people staff our projects? How can people resourcing, skills mapping, when we talk about putting together a team, we want to make sure it has the most diverse set of skills, because we know the most inclusive team is always going to outperform. So really thinking about that and really customizing that experience. When we think about also bringing that culture of belonging, that whole self of work. So how do we support that? How do we allow people to develop those experiences? Opt in on the projects we want. We talked a lot about role models and a little bit of the storytelling. My son Luke is in the audience here today. He is clearly made by dyslexia and thriving in the New York City environment. His role model was Sir Richard Branson. Throughout his workforce, his career, he wrote papers on Richard, had that expiring up to. He also played high school football against Rashawn Gary, so we had a little bit of connections in the audience today. I think also when we talk about removing obstacles, we're really focusing on removing obstacles in the area of recruiting. We're doing a lot of work with different universities, really driving a connection between the education environment, universities in our case, and the employee environment. And what are those obstacles? So get away from standardized testing. Just because someone spelt the word wrong does not mean we need all the skills. Really kind of driving that area. And I think it was Jenny or someone mentioned, we're really looking at what learnings we're getting from our broadest set of neurodiverse communities.
Interesting. Laura, what about HSBC? What are you doing in this area?
So there's lots of things happening, but probably one thing that I would particularly focus on today, and it picks up on the power of what LinkedIn did last year. But a couple of years ago, we put in place some software called Talent Marketplace, and it was really there to solve the challenge that Matt spoke to, that the world is changing, skills are changing fast, and many people, as we know, need to reskill. So we put in this AI-driven technology talent marketplace with a company called Gloat. And actually, post the LinkedIn campaign last year, we spoke with their CEO over the last few months and said, we really want to drive like an understanding of dyslexic talent at HSBC. So they've now enabled dyslexic thinking as a skill on the talent marketplace as well, which I'm really excited about. It's great, great news. And, you know, this is a software that's used by many, many leading companies around the world. So I think, you know, HSBC has been there at the start, but this is a real opportunity for employers around the world to a new era to really unleash dyslexic talent in their organizations. So very exciting.
Sounds like a tremendous step in the right direction. Speaking of steps in the next direction, Matt, let's come to you. Tomorrow, a large group of senior business leaders are going to be graciously hosted at LinkedIn to talk about how we take the next steps and the great momentum that's been created today into reality moving forward. If you could think of kind of a wish that comes from that, what would you like to see?
I think one of the things for me personally is I sort of look out in the audience and there's a lot of parents here with young children. So my son Thomas is 12, dyslexic, and I've spent a lot of time working out what can I do in the job that I do to help him, but also other people with young children. And I think there's 2 or 3 key things that we're going to work on tomorrow that you'll see coming over the next few months and years that will benefit everybody in the room and everybody around the world. And I think firstly it's defining dyslexia as a valuable skill. So you have children in the audience, your children will get the jobs of the future. And that, to me, is hugely powerful. So we will take that away and we will bring that to you. The second is talk to organizations. I'd say talk to organizations and offer adjustments. I think dyslexic thinking needs adjustments. Tailor the recruitment process like Laura's talked about. Start affinity groups. But most importantly, be really proud that you're dyslexic in the workplace, because I certainly am, and I know my son is, and you should all be. So.
Nicole and Jenny, we have time for one last question quickly. Anything to add to Matt's response? What would you like to see happen next?
more people get more comfortable with talking about the advantages of being dyslexic. I hid it for most of my career. Why are you going to trust a communications person that can't spell? My 12-year-old is dyslexic, and she'll trip over something and say, hey, it's because I'm dyslexic. So that's how open and comfortable she is with who she is. So the more we can embrace this is a skill, the more we can create space to see that there's different approaches to solving problems. And I think in the professional realm, the more that people can add this as a skill on LinkedIn and have these types of important conversations, the bigger a difference we can all make.
And I would just say there's a beautiful phrase, which is come as you are and do as you love. I'm a very proud deaf disabled woman. I came to Microsoft 18 years ago. I did not self-identify. What was I thinking? What? I would say the same back to you. Dyslexia is a skill, it is a strength, it is a talent pool, and we desperately need you. So come as you are and do what you love, which hopefully is tech.
Please thank our fantastic panel.
So, my next guest needs no introduction whatsoever. One of the world's most famous entrepreneurs, creator of one of the world's most loved brands, and a huge supporter of Made by Dyslexia, Richard Branson. Welcome.
How's everybody? I think I met some kids in the lift at the Virgin Hotel earlier. Any of you here? Do you have any kids here? Oh yeah, hello. Nice to see you. How many kids we got in the audience? Shout if you're a kid. Shout if you're a big kid. Yay! Anyway, good to meet you all.
So back to dyslexic thinking, although that was too. Richard, you are brilliant at imagining. You are fantastic at seeing the big picture and brilliant at simplifying things. These are three amazing dyslexic thinking skills. How have they helped you to shape your business empire?
Yeah, well, one of my favorite phrases is keep it simple, stupid. And I think that's really important in life. I mean, I think schools are apt to overcomplicate simple issues. Somebody used the word neurodiversity earlier. I thought, I don't want to talk about neurodiversity. I just want to talk about, anyway, just simplify it. I didn't even know what I was about to do. Some of you understand that. So throughout my life, I've simplified everything. So I don't like flying on other people's airlines. So maybe we should start an airline. Get out a blank sheet of paper and think, right, what do you need to start an airline? You need a plane. You need pilots. You need, write down the simple list of the things you need. How can, if we're going to start an airline, how can we make it massively better than everybody else? What are the things we dislike about all the other airlines? So let's make a list of all the things we dislike about other airlines, and then let's go about maybe with just one plane, and create an airline that people would like to fly. And that was 39 years ago. And nobody gave it more than, it was said it would last more than a year, and somehow it did. More recently, we started a cruise line called Virgin Voyages. Again, we just got a sheet of paper out. What do we not like about cruises? What do we like about cruises? Can we create the kind of cruise company that is really, really good fun to travel on? My grandkids, by the way, are really pissed off because kids are not allowed on board. And I came home one day and they were standing outside the house with banners, let kids on, Grandad. we love you, but the end result, has been, I think, the cruise companies just won all 5 awards for best cruise line, best staff, best everything. Thank you. And I think we haven't overcomplicated it. I mean, there's often, if somebody's trying to decide whether to start a company, they'll get the accountants in, they'll get reams of figures, and by the time you've finished, you're not going to start it because there'll be one set of accountants who'll tell you why you shouldn't do it, and another will maybe tell you why you should do it. But in the end, it's your instinct. You just have to think, if I can create something that's the best in the world, the figures are likely to add up. Sometimes you'll fall flat in your face. Sometimes you'll succeed. So anyway, the main thing is keep it simple. Whatever you're doing, don't overcomplicate it.
And last year, we worked on an amazing campaign together to get dyslexic thinking as a skill on LinkedIn and in the dictionary. And I know we're working on something else, which you'll all find out about soon. Why do you think dyslexic thinking is so valuable in today's workplace? We've just heard lots from a brilliant panel, but why do you think it is?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that the team, your team, yourself, and the team that created Dyslexic Thinking, and I now proudly put the word dyslexic thinker after my name. I've had so many parents, so many dyslexic kids come up just saying, it's just great. We've got a really positive, positive something to identify with, and I think it's deserved because dyslexic people. I mean, we're not all the same, and there's different the different kinds of dyslexia, but we do things slightly differently. And I think by and large, dyslexic people are more creative. With the advent of AI going to take jobs away from people, I think companies are going to need people with dyslexia, people with ADHD, letter I, or whatever it's called. Why do they always have such complicated names for things like, I mean, who came up with the word dyslexia in the first place? I mean, what dyslexic can ever spell dyslexia? I mean, so we'll just have to. We're going to have to reinvent the name. Anybody got a better name? We'll put some of the dyslexic kids by the end of this conference. Let's come up with another name. Anybody want to shout out any better name for it? All right, yep. Anybody else? All right, you've got a few minutes to think about it. We'll finish the interview, then we'll come back to you. Right.
So my last question for you.
You've got to think quick.
You famously struggled at school. What would your 7-year-old self think about where you are now?
Well, I think my 7-year-old kid would be quite chuffed I mean, you know, when I was 7, I was just bottom of the class, and you know, people thought I was pretty hopeless, but it was out of that adversity of not being able to do conventional type of schooling that meant that through that adversity, I went off to do the things I was interested in. And I think the great thing about dyslexics is, you know, we can excel at the things we're interested in, and we can excel more than people who are not dyslexic. And actually, out of that adversity, I think comes fantastic creativity. So I think I've been lucky. I've had a hell of a ride, and not everything's gone well. But I've just learned, you know, had a life of learning incredible new experiences, one after the other, and I'm absolutely delighted to be able to work with you on being, you know, now that we're both in a position to help people who are the 7-year-olds out there today and older. You know, it's great to see dyslexics, you know, finally appreciated for what they are, so any other names out there? What's that? I couldn't hear it. I like that. What's that? Say it again. Think you. Thinker. Just thinker. Yeah, why not? Simple. Keep it simple, stupid. Right, thinker. It is. All right, sorry. One more kid back there. Diffo. Ah, nice. All right, we got those two competing now. Thinker and Diffo. Okay. Letter A. Okay, we've now got A. Diffo. I'm going to have to write them all down. Anyway, we'll get somebody to collect them all together. And will you collect the ideas?
Fantastic.
Okay. Anyway, thank you very much. Cheers. Good luck.
Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you.
That was special, wasn't it? And also, I mean, I think all of us just need to say thank you to Sir Richard for all these years of supporting us square pegs. What a man. So we're going to move on, and this is a conversation I'm really looking forward to. As you've heard, not many workplaces have really woken up to the benefits of having a dyslexic thinker in their midst. But there are a few industries who have been onto us for a while, 100 years to be precise, for a long, long time. Did you know that British spies have been using their dyslexic thinking to connect the dots and to see differences and details that others have missed? I know that I'm a better journalist for being made by dyslexia, and the same goes for British intelligence. So I'm incredibly honoured to introduce the director of GCHQ, which is Britain's Intelligence, Cyber and Security Agency, Sir Jeremy Fleming. Welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us, Sir Jeremy. I'm very lucky because we've worked with GCHQ as a charity for a few years now, and I know how much you value dyslexic thinking in your organisation. So much so that GCHQ recruits 4 times as many dyslexics into its apprentice scheme than any other. Why do dyslexics make great spies?
Look, thanks. Thanks, Kate. I have to say, coming into a big sign that says spies, I usually try and go a bit more undercover than that. But I know many of you will be disappointed I didn't turn up in Aston Martin. But it turns out that spying, keeping the country safe, is all about how you get the right mix of minds to come together to solve the seemingly impossible. So you're right, GCHQ has deeply valued people who think differently, to use some of Richard's language, who simplify, who try and do things which people didn't think that was possible, but to see the patterns amongst the noise. And so we've had 100 years of doing that. And when I look back at our history, I literally can trace it back over 100 years. I can trace it back to those people who turned up in Bletchley Park to solve the problem of the Enigma during World War II, and I can see it in the problems that we face every day, including right up to today, with how we're having to deal with a war in Europe for the first time in my lifetime, but for over 75 years.
And I'm really fascinated to know what you think the impact of AI is going to be on intelligence.
When I look at the type of people we employ, and I didn't pick up on your reference, but you are right in saying that we have nearly 3 or 4 times the national average of people who have dyslexia in our apprentice scheme. And when I look at the numbers of people who've come through our organisation, I can see that all the way through. And of course, what happens in my organisation is people are looking for ways to keep the country safe. And in GCHQ, we've always done that with technology, with languages, with people who analyze, with people who try and work out how they can have an effect down on the ground, change the facts. And when you look then at a technology like artificial intelligence or machine learning, I've been sitting here today right up there, listening to panelist after panelist say how important it is. And I think that's right. If you look at the way that sort of technology can, if you like, co-pilot alongside my people who analyze, alongside my people who think about language. So I see it as an augmentative technology. But I don't think we should be under any illusions. Of course, it needs to be built in a way where it does good, where it meets our values. And so when I think about that, then I think about the sorts of people that we should have creating that technology. And that means there's a place for people who think differently, with the neurodiverse characteristics, which Richard didn't like the label, but we're stuck with it a bit. But that sense of having people who think differently, helping to form and shape the technology, that's a real positive view as well. There is a bit of a darker side to it. And of course, our adversaries will use the same technologies. And so how we differentiate ourselves from our adversaries will be how we bring, again, that right mix of minds together to keep the country safe and to safeguard our values.
And technology is obviously increasingly going to be a threat towards security. What role does dyslexia have in stopping that threat?
Well, look, people who think differently, people with dyslexia, are integral to my teams. And when I see dyslexic people in my teams, then they are team players. They can see the noise, through the noise, to see the facts. They are really good at simplifying. And in this day and age, when technology is increasing the pace of everything, then those teams have to be more and more effective. So I deliberately go out and look for people who think differently. We deliberately try and create teams and value people who think differently. It's not just about attracting those sorts of people into our workforce. It's about how we make the most of their skills and their potential when they're here. So when I hear your previous panelists talk about the adjustments that they've made or want to be made in their workplaces, then we do a lot of that already. When people come to be interviewed with us, we look for ways to make that experience easier. For example, we allow people to park questions if they're not ready to answer them. We give people extra time, of course, and when they're inside, then we try and make sure the workspace is as compatible with their skills to be fully part of the team that we need to keep the country safe.
Amazing, Jeremy. Thank you so much. So there's a career out there for all you dyslexic thinkers. You can become a spy. Thank you so much, Jeremy.
Thank you.
So now we're going to move from spies to sharks. 40% of entrepreneurs are dyslexic. 60% of self-made millionaires are too. Next, we're going to hear from Barbara Corcoran. She started her business with a $1,000 loan and turned it into a $66 million business by thinking differently. The face of TV show Shark Tank, Barbara Corcoran's Lessons in Dyslexic Thinking is coming now. So, Barbara, you have a wonderful quote which says, "I was the dumb girl in school because I couldn't learn to read words. I became the smart girl in business because I learned how to read people." Dyslexic thinking is all about reading people. So I'd really love to know more about your dyslexic thinking skills and how it's helped you to succeed.
It's the whole reason I succeeded. I've always been great with people. You know, you get a couple of other little treats when you're dyslexic. One is you are naturally enormously empathetic. That's a great people-building skill. And teams, I mean, unless you want a business of one, just you, making shoes or something, you have to be good with people. You build business on people. There's nothing else, really. And so if you can spot a person, identify their talent very quickly, because you're empathetic and sympathetic, you can build a huge business on the skills of so many different people with different skills. And so teammanship and the ability to lead a team and pick the right people and motivate them the right way is all part of what you get, I think, with the downside of being dyslexic, not being good with books or numbers or digits. But you could hire people for that stuff. That's the boring stuff anyway. You don't want to be doing that all day. You get to do the fun stuff with the people and the creative stuff with the design and the daydreaming and visualizing where you want to go. I mean, that's all the fun part of building a business. So I have a fertile imagination and the ability to see from the sky down. I have that gift. I had it as a kid. I have it as an adult. I would go into a business meeting. I don't care who I was with. I would have an idea, boom, seen in my head as I was flying in the sky. Look down and see who was going to do what, how we were going to make money, how many months it was going to take without knowing any math or anything. And I would make my estimate accurate every time because I had the ability to see from the sky down.
Yeah, it's an amazing, amazing gift. And Shark Tank, obviously you're a presenter and TV personality as well. Do you think dyslexia has helped you with that?
The best card for me on Shark Tank is my empathy. I can slip right into that entrepreneur's shoes, and I could also see through a phony right away. I can see what doesn't fit the picture, so to speak. Like, I'm not even quite sure why it's not registering, but I've learned to trust my gut because I get a whole picture, whole feeling, and I either go or I don't. So, no, it's a shortcut on Shark Tank if you have that ability, no doubt about it.
How important is failure to you?
Well, failure, if you want to get ahead in life, is half of what life is. If you don't know how to fail and get back up, you don't move ahead in anything. So it's the greatest attribute to have. But I don't think you could tell kids to be happy about failure because at the moment it's happening, it feels really lousy. You certainly don't feel good about yourself. But as long as when you grow up, you're able to then start to realize what a gift you have. I think that's when you start feeling a little bit better. But even that takes a lot of years to uproot and feel good about, I think.
What do you think your dyslexic challenges are?
Erasing the damn tape in my head. The tape that was given to me by the teachers, the adults, the other kids, the tape that says, you're not smart, you're not going to do it, you can't read this. Still, on a doubting day, where I'm not well prepared, or I'm intimidated by someone who graduated from Harvard, or whatever my whole list of stupid stuff is, I still get that tape kicking back in.
How do you think you do sort of kill those negative thoughts?
Yeah, you exit out in your head. The minute it creeps in, you put I see it in my head, a visual red X. I put it out in my head, and I ignore it, and I realize I'm willful enough to conquer it, because I am.
When you were growing up, did you have a champion?
My mother was my savior. When I would come home from school very teary-eyed and feeling so defeated, my mother would constantly tell me I was a genius. A genius, that's an odd word to use on a kid. She'd say, you're a genius, you have a wonderful imagination, and with it you'll learn to fill in all the blanks. And that was really true. I did learn to fill in all the blanks, and I kind of believed her because of her faithfulness to me.
So we started with your amazing quote. Can we end with a quote? Maybe if you had some advice that you would give to a kid at school or somebody who's dyslexic who's just starting out in business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give to them?
I tell them the hard part is behind them. I mean, it's easy for me to say now because I'm looking back at success. But school is over when you get out of school. Let it go behind you. You're about to start your world all over again. And if you could create your own world as an entrepreneur, unbiased, it's the best way to go.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place to end, though. Fantastic advice. Thank you, Barbara. That's amazing.
You are welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara, for that. It's just fantastic. So it really is all about creativity, isn't it? And Kate, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the stage because you are not up next. There we go. We're going to get her back because she's got a treat for us as well. So creativity is our real strength, isn't it? To find creative ways to make our world more beautiful or more delicious. So I'm delighted to introduce to the stage celebrity chef Mark Murphy and celebrity makeup artist Quinn Murphy. Thank you.
Stay.
Actually, I do wish Kate was here, snuggling up on the couch with you too. Yes, because she's got some pretty fantastic insights. Thank you so much, gentlemen. You're both made by dyslexia. You're both incredibly successful. I'm going to jump right in and ask you, how has your dyslexic thinking helped you? Go for it, Mark.
Start with me. Well, first of all, I didn't really know how it did because I'm learning so much today. I'm a little bit blown away. That last thing with Barbara Corcoran was like, I wish I had that, 50 years ago, being able to look at things like that. But for me, dyslexia really, I think where it helped me in the kitchen was I was able to look at problems differently. I was able to solve them quicker. I was able to look at ingredients and figure out how to maybe manipulate them in different ways and maybe even do things a little faster and getting the dishes put together. The restaurant world, there's a lot of long tradition of things happening. And when I was in France working with French chefs with this is the way we do it, and I was like, no, we can do it this other way. It's going to be much quicker. And so that definitely helped me out.
And for you, Quinn?
Well, first of all, this is incredible that on this stage that Richard Branson was on and all of these amazing people. I don't think anyone else can do eyeliner, though, so I've earned my place here.
You've got that one there.
Yeah, thank you. I've been thinking that I don't know how to separate my success or my life from being dyslexic because they're always all present in everything that I am. So everything I do, I'm having a conversation with you, I'm listening to you, I'm also listening to you with, I think of like ears on my heart, right? So what you're actually saying and what I'm feeling from you. And whenever I walk into work or a situation, it's always collaborative, whether it's with the talent, celebrity, the hair, the wardrobe stylist, the host of a talk show. Everyone is working as a team, and I think that when dyslexics are really following their passion, it involves some type of team. Because when we're younger, you realize really early what you're not good at and what you are good at. And this person, okay, you're going to be the secretary, and you're going to write all my ideas down. And then this person's going to, help me facilitate my creativity. And what happens is you become really good at being a team. And that's what I do in everything that I do. I'm a part of a team.
So, I mean, I think it's about empathy, as Barbara was saying, and with that empathy comes leadership, particularly when you're running a restaurant or you kind of doing a cover for a magazine.
Yeah, when you run a restaurant, you can't do everything. I mean, you can't cook every dish, you can't serve every dish, you can't wash every pot. So you do need a team, and you have to be able to know how to talk to the team. You have to know what each team member needs from me for them to actually do what they need to do. And I always, you know, it was something that just came easy to me. I guess being dyslexic and going through years and years of school and failing constantly, I had to find another way to get through the day, and that was maybe being funny, maybe reading other people's what they needed or what I needed to get for them, give to them to give me attention. And so running a restaurant business where at one point I had 650 employees, it was, you know, it's, all right, this is a lot of juggling going on. But I'm just learning pretty much today that why I did that was dyslexia. This is just crazy. It is. And I mean, we've spoken about the empathy, but I think certainly for me, you know, there's an insatiable curiosity that I have. And I know you've spoken about that as well. There's just this need to know people better, to understand. And that cuts across all industries.
I also think to know, you know, when you're doing art, sometimes you just do it and you don't know why, but I think the dyslexic mind is constantly going, okay, I know I did that. Why did that work? Why didn't that work? And so now when I'm doing things in my career, I can put my shoulder behind it because I know why I'm doing it.
And you trust
from
yourself.
That curiosity.
Yeah, and you trust yourself.
I do, yeah. Now I do.
And
now you do. You didn't before.
No. I do want to ask you, and it has been one of the definitive questions here, is this conversation that we have with ourselves about our 7-year-old self. And I'd love to ask you guys both, you know, what would you say to those little boys, and how hard was it?
I was a dynamo as a kid. I just came out ready, and I was unruly and hard and difficult and had all that passion and emotion and everything. And then around 7, I think I shut down, you know, publicly. It was a lot of things going on, and I think that I would say to anybody, never diminish your potential based on what society or anyone else has told you, whether it be a standardized test, you can't spell, your sexuality, whatever it is. Do not let it affect your potential in life, because it's actually, none of that matters. Yeah. The only thing that matters is that you find your passion, and once you find it, go for it.
Mark, we've got 1 minute, 43 seconds.
It's easy for us to say that now, but I know it is very difficult as a 7-year-old when everybody around you is telling you you're stupid or you're dumb. And that's where I was. And it was very difficult. The last time somebody asked me this question, I started crying. So thanks a lot. This is like a therapy session. All right, welcome to therapy over here.
But because it hits at that little, we're still that kid, aren't we?
Well, you know, you can't shake it. It's like Barbara was saying, you know, you just can't exit. It's difficult to X that out. And it's really, it's baggage we carry with us for the rest of our lives. And I think it's amazing. I'm so happy that this is happening, that this is being recognized as something that other children won't have to have this as baggage. But my 7-year-old self, I was like a deflated tire. I mean, I can't do anything right. I could never do anything right. And it was very difficult. And then so when I didn't do anything right, I just did things even more wrong to get into more trouble, to get more attention. So I was pedal to the metal going the wrong way. And my 7-year-old self, or what I say is just forget what about anybody else is saying to you. Just keep going forward. And I think the thing that kept me going is always, I'm never going to do anything that I'm not having fun doing. And that was my goal after I got out of high school, which is the only schooling I got through, was I don't care what I do, but I'm going to have a good time doing it. And that's been my motto ever since. And I'm still doing it. And and I'm having a great time now.
And that's the point. Have some fun along the way.
I'll say one more thing.
Very quickly.
We've got
20 seconds.
What matters when you're, at least for me, is that you specialize. Nobody cares if you can spell or if you take a good standardized test. What matters is that you're that person who does that one thing that people really want. And everybody I know who's really successful does the thing that really co-aligns with who they are and filling that need. Sorry.
Gentlemen, thank you. Aren't they fabulous? Thank you so much. Lots of love. I'll give you a hug. There we go. Well done.
By the way, you're good at this.
Well, I'm dyslexic, that's why. So I'm actually, and I feel so bad having to kick Kate off the stage, so I'm going to bring her back on. Kate, are you there? She is really the reason we are all here, and she's just the most incredible dynamo, powerhouse, and just the most wonderful human being, because it's her, you, who have really changed the world in the way we think. I just want to know why are you so fired up to be a change maker like you are?
I think it's probably like, No, it's probably like every parent in the room. It's when you've got to fight for your kids. I mean, I had a terrible time at school until I was 9, and I went to a brilliant school that got dyslexic thinking, gave me the support I needed for my challenges. But when my son started school, they had no clue. They had no teachers were trained, and he went from a really happy little boy to a very unhappy little boy, and that fired me to want to do something.
Yeah, and I think that mother, that fierce mother in all of us also has spurred a lot of us, me included. Tell me what your dyslexic thinking skills are, and how have you leaned into them as well?
So I think one of my biggest skills is connecting with people, and the change that we're making is not all down to me, it's down to the amazing people that we have around us. I'm very good at seeing the big picture, simplifying things. The solution to this problem is really simple. Every school needs to have the skills in it to be able to spot and support these kids. It's that simple. And we need to... And we've made that training for free. We now need everybody, every parent, to get behind this, every teacher to get behind this and change this once and for all, because we can and we will.
With your help.
With your help.
You're on the journey with us. And finally, did you know that Kate's childhood hero was Muhammad Ali? And I think that's wonderful. And I also know that you have a surprise for us.
Yes, we do. I loved Muhammad Ali. I loved his attitude, the fact he was a change maker. He fought for justice and equality. He just is the most inspirational person. And I was lucky enough to spend a few days in Kentucky at the Muhammad Ali Center. And we are super proud to announce that we have partnered with the Muhammad Ali Center and really hope to drive change together. Have a look at this film.
The mission of the Muhammad Ali Center is to mobilize Muhammad's legacy, to foster respect, to inspire the next generation of change makers, and to advance social justice.
Muhammad Ali lived his life around 6 core principles: conviction, confidence, dedication, respect, spirituality, and giving. Through these principles, he was really able to tackle his dyslexia and figure out how it was a strength for him versus something that would hold him back.
He was a fantastic sports person. He was a great imaginer. He could see what he wanted to achieve in life and told everybody else what he wanted to achieve. He's an amazing campaigner, incredible with people. He was a fantastic poet, fantastic artist, all of the things that we would accredit dyslexic thinking to.
The legacy of Muhammad Ali is kind of multifaceted, right? We know him as the sports hero, the icon, kind of the hype man. But he's also an individual who helped change and better lives for people who were often discriminated against, who didn't have equal opportunities.
Muhammad wanted to ensure that every young person could achieve their personal greatness the way that he did.
That was very much his message. Believe in yourself, have confidence, And I think there are dyslexic children all over the world that feel less than at school because they're really struggling.
Children of color and children from low-income families often don't get the services and the diagnosis that would support them.
What I see happening when children don't learn how to read, they go on what we call the school-to-prison pipeline.
There are young people who have the skills and the knowledge, but they're simply just not being recognized.
Everybody doesn't learn the same way, and it's our responsibility to teach each child based on what they need.
Our aspirations for Learn Dyslexia are completely global. We do want to train every single teacher in the world. And I think what is fantastic about the partnership with Muhammad Ali is he is a global brand.
For his legacy to also be incorporated into serving students with dyslexia and understanding the strengths that are associated with thinking differently. And Muhammad Ali really embodies that.
I'm really delighted to be kicking off this wonderful program and this partnership with Made by Dyslexia. We want to be part of this movement.
Our goal is that every educator in Kentucky will be able to go through these free, amazing training workshops that are available through Made by Dyslexia. We want to be proudly the first state in the nation to say that every one of our teachers has completed this program.
New York City, the biggest city in the world, was the first city to train all teachers. Kentucky is going to be the first state in America to train all teachers.
The fact that there's a push to say we're going to get all of our teachers trained is just really, really exciting.
I know the importance of preparing our teachers and giving them the resources they need to help our students learn differently.
I'm going to do everything I can with the days and weeks and years that I have left to carry this message.
The only way we are going to break this cycle of students who graduate from school not fully literate, not able to read, and therefore not able to contribute everything they could to society is taking a bold stance like Kentucky is right now.
Muhammad Ali was the greatest, and if we can use that legacy to bring together people all around the world, then I really do think we'll be able to achieve great things together.
We have a saying around the Muhammad Ali Center that there is Muhammad magic in the air.
He would be thrilled that we have forged this incredible partnership with Made by Dyslexia.
We just felt it was Muhammad magic.
I am a man like the man in the movies. Give me a line and I'll speak my mind. We try to keep a people face on for the camera. So smile for me on this occasion, please. I am a square in a world full of round holes. The ships are blind to the fact I'm trying. But there's a world inside my head you need to look for. A world inside my head you need to see. For we are the rebels on the earth. We are the pebbles on the surf. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. When I was a child, I could move a mountain. I could see imagery in my head, but the others told me I was just a dreamer. I dispel the word imagination, please. I am much more than a tick in a square box. I am more complex than you're complex. There's a world inside my head of pure invention. A world inside my head you need to see. rebels on the earth, and we are the pebbles on the surf. Hallelujah, hallelujah. When I was a kid, I used to sit and wonder up at the stars. Whoa. When I was a kid, I used to sit and wonder what were the odds. Whoa,
Thank you very much. Give it up for give it up for these guys.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you to Innovision Events for putting on an incredible event. Thank you to Edward Knox. Thank you to the Harlem Gospel Choir and everybody else who's taken part today. It's your time to create the change. We're here. We'll do anything we can to help drive it, but it really is over to you. And that includes any kids who have any ideas for names. We're writing them down out in the lobby. So I'm going to take a selfie now of you guys, and we just want you to drive change everywhere. Thank you so much.